Hello, it's Monday the 20th of November. I hope everyone's doing okay. It's been quite a tricky Monday. It's a shortened holiday trading week in North America with a Thanksgiving holiday. And we also have, the big news of the week, I think, is tomorrow when we have the Fed minutes, which sometimes, if the Fed don't like how the market kind of took the news, they will quite often, I think they correct or they use the minutes to correct market thinking. So we need to watch out for potentially some volatility from that tomorrow. And so potentially that sets us up for a little bit of a turnaround Tuesday, because we've had a kind of weird day in stock indexes. US stock indexes rose strongly, whereas European stock indexes like the DAX and the FTSE did not. They had a little bit of a pullback day. For me, though, the S&P today hit a long-term target, this 786 fib level at 45.63. It's the S&P's favourite fib level, if you like. So I'm not saying that we're going to have a reversal here. I think, in fact, we're in quite a strong uptrend. And, without a kind of reversal price action, it may just be one of those levels we pause at. But often with 3 or 4 day holidays, you will see a reversal of trend going into the holiday and resume again afterwards, or vice versa. So 45.63 in the E-mini S&P. And if we look at the NASDAQ, we didn't make a new high in this NASDAQ today on the daily, but we did also retest this 786 fib retrace level, and that comes from the high in November 2021 to the low we made in November 2022. So we're retesting the high, and so potentially a bit of a resistance in these indexes, and we could see a little bit of a pullback. And one of the reasons I also think that is we reached a kind of big target level I was watching for in the dollar index, and that is, let's get this dollar index chart up and the weekly chart. First off, it's the weekly 50 moving average, which previously has been really important support and resistance for this dollar index, and it's also 50%, a 50% retrace from the low that we made in July to the high we made at the beginning of October. It would be weird if we kind of didn't try a little bit of a bounce from here. And on the daily, it's the daily 200 moving average. That's normally kind of around where the weekly 50 is. So this is one of those levels. I also think we could count 5 waves down here. So potentially through the holiday, we could see a little bit of a bounce here, particularly if the Fed get meddling. So watch out for that tomorrow. At the moment, though, to be honest, with all the ETF and everybody anticipating the ETF news coming, crypto really hasn't been paying attention to what's going on in the other markets. So let's take a look at where we are in crypto markets. And let's start with Bitcoin. I'm going to start with spot Bitcoin. And we're in this sideways correction pattern. I'm going to take off all my scribbles. And big picture, when I look at this on the weekly, and I put fib retrace levels on from the high that we made in November 2021. For me, we're kind of holding above this 38.2, 35,000 level. And whilst we do that, I think there is room to hit that 50% retrace from the high, which would give us 42,000. Also, if this is just, rather than a really kind of new impulsive swing, if this is just going to be an equal measured move zone, that kind of also points me towards 40,000, 41,000. So for me, as long as we stay above sort of 34,500, 35,000, we should continue higher to 40,000 to on 42,000. However, with this holiday this week and last week, a kind of just pause sideways candle, we could kind of go sideways for a little bit longer. I feel like everybody kind of got a little bit too far in front of their skis with what's going on with this ETF news. I mean, we can see from news reports that they seem to be getting ready, but the SEC could still delay it for quite a long time. And so whilst I think it's, if you're holding from a good position, being kind of leveraged long at this point is a little bit tricky, because again, we could set up some sideways. It could take them till January or February to approve this ETF, and so we could have quite a lot of chop between then. One thing that did surprise me today, because it seems like everybody's suddenly filing for ETH ETFs, and ETH hasn't really rallied the way Bitcoin did, so that was a little bit of a surprise, but we'll talk about ETH in a minute. So for now, do I see any kind of compelling trades here in Bitcoin? No. I do think, though, that we are due another leg lower, and if I look at this on a 4-hour, corrections are normally 3 waves, so we went 1, 2, 3 down, and I think we're going 1, 2, 3 up, and we'll have one more leg lower back towards sort of 34,500 potentially, before we try again for the top of the range and potentially that 40,000 level. We may have to get the holiday out of the way. Now, way back when markets worked on weekends and holidays and Christmas, I remember Thursday was a pretty quiet day, but I've seen some really quite wild moves in crypto on Black Friday, which is this week, so we should watch out for that. So again, try buy the bottom of the range, sell the top, buy the bottom, until we get up to 42,000. We'll see what happens there. One thing I do think is, if we get a big spike, if the ETF gets announced and we get a big spike, I'm definitely going to take some profit on that spike. So now there are a lot of things I see that are helping Bitcoin. One of the things, I'm not a big fan of this 4-year halving cycle. I do think Bitcoin, and particularly crypto mania, a lot of it is driven by liquidity in the markets, which I kind of see coming back in again, particularly last week. And so if that continues, I think that will be very good news for crypto. Let's see. Certainly we've had a pretty nice bullish move in stock indexes and everything else. So, despite 2 wars going on in the world, so that's pretty good news. Okay, so ETH. Now, I've drawn this channel, which I shouldn't really, because we don't really have enough touches. But I do have 3 touches on this bottom rail here. And I have to say, when I zoom out and look at ETH here, so far, with this drop, it really does look very kind of choppy and sideways and kind of corrective, and it's not kind of compellingly bullish here for me. But I kind of have a fib pattern rule that if we reverse at a 786 fib and we get above and hold above the 61.8, the target is the 38.2 again, which would mean from here, for me, if we can hold above 1909, our target is 3,000 for ETH, so that's pretty good. So we are in a nice little sideways correction, and so far this 1909 level has held very well. It was resistance at the beginning of the month, and end of last week it was support. So it's doing everything that we want. Are we ready to go up higher again? I don't think. It feels like with the holiday and everything going on this week, and really potentially some volatility tomorrow, then it may be, we're just going to go sideways here for a bit while these moving averages catch up before we go again. But that's how I'm looking at this at the moment. And actually, potentially, yes, we could. And if this is a little bullish pennant and we break out, my next upside target is 24.74 and then 3,000. And we kind of need a new high to guarantee it. But I have to say, it is looking pretty good. It was just weird that over the last couple of days, all these other companies filing for ETH ETFs, that it hasn't done a bit more. Okay, so another coin token that has had a lot of news this weekend going on with obviously the AI stuff, which was just madness. Madness is WorldCoin. So, which I had ready and have lost. Here we go, WorldCoin. Now this WorldCoin is the one, where it works like a digital ID for everybody, and they take your scan of your retina, which I kind of not sure I agree with. But it has been very volatile. And what I want to point out is, this is another one, this is a new coin. And if you make 3 waves, especially equal measured moves, then, and we've kind of got a pretty nasty double top here at the top of the channel here in WorldCoin. Potentially, this now becomes quite important support, because if it's not, we're going to see a bigger 1, 2, 3 wave correction. Let me explain why. First off, if I put my fibs from this high to low, we have not been able on the daily to close above this 61.8 level. So that means we're in that golden ratio zone in between the 61.8 and 38.2 down here at 1.5. And here we are at 2.4. And if I also, so this 50% pivot level here, this 38.2 kind of middle of the range here and the bottom of the channel then becomes pretty important. If we drop underneath 1.86, we're going to see another swing lower and potentially all the way back to the lows. It may be curtains for WorldCoin. Let's see. Now, if I measure from this low to high here, and here we've got our pullback, we've also stopped at what, it's messy and spiky, but it is an equal measured move as well. And so when I measure equal measured moves, and you reverse at them, and especially this is a swing failure double top. For me, if we were to close underneath 1.9 daily close, actually that also confirms a bit of a bearish reversal. But I think I'm going to be more conservative and say, the bottom of the channel and this daily 50 is where we're probably pulling back to. And underneath it, really, I'm going to instead measure from this high. So this is our first swing of correction bounce. And say actually we're probably going down to 1.27 and maybe lower, so this is pretty nasty bearish reversal for WorldCoin after a pretty spiky weekend, so be a little bit careful in that one. So that's my favorite short setup for tonight. I actually think my favorite long setup might be Arbitrum. I'll cover that one at the end. So also happening tonight after the close is NVDA earnings. So when we got to 500, I tend to use fib projections, and I look at the ones that work and lean on them, when they worked previously. So way back in NVIDIA in 2018, we had this pullback. We got to the 1.618 in the middle here, which became support. We got to the 2.618, which kind of validated this protection for me. 4.236 here on the monthly we stopped at. It was 2 months, it was resistance, then it was support, and then it was support. So that kind of validated it. And so for me, I had a big kind of fib level here, 497, 500. And I still got that. And if we close above it and hold above 500 on the earnings tonight, my next upside target is 786. However, I'm not convinced we're going to get there tonight, mainly because when I look at the size of these previous corrections and how small this is, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up, double topping and potentially doing a bigger pullback before we continue higher. Now, that's obviously a big weekly, and here we are on the daily, and you can see we're really trying to push above these highs, aren't we? Haven't quite managed to do it yet. For me, I think we not only need to break above, but this now also needs to be kind of proved as support if we're going to keep going higher. I don't know, maybe we gap higher and it flies to the moon. I could be wrong. It certainly looks like very bullish consolidation. So above 497.7, we continue to 786. And the reason I'm warning about this is if this is not, or if it fails, it becomes a bit of a reversal here. Quite a lot of the AI coins that I've been following have been kind of loosely correlated with NVIDIA, so watch out for that. Okay, next one we're going to look at is, I think, Arbitrum. So for me, I'm always looking at the ones that haven't gone yet, the ones that aren't at the highs, aren't on their way up yet. Now, when I look at Arbitrum here on the weekly, so we had a rally up to this 236 fib, validated it very nicely at 0.99, or basically 0.1. Sharp pullback, and then this next swing was 1.618 of wave 1, which makes me think it's a pretty nice, you can see we stopped at 1.618, which makes me think it's a pretty nice wave 3. And so we've gone wave 1, 2, 3, this is wave 4, and I'm waiting for it to turn up again for its next swing higher. And here we are, we've pulled back on the daily to the daily 200 moving average, so I'm kind of liking the look of this. I also kind of like the look of this, again, 3-wave equal ABC correction back to this. We're not quite there, it's at 9754 was the ideal level. And this also, this previous swing low and these lows and highs, so haven't got the bullish reversal price action I'm looking for yet, but I'm stalking it in Arbitrum, and I think back underneath 0.99 I'm going to give up and say it's finished, and it's going to do a bit deeper pullback. It's not going to be the next kind of swing higher that I'm looking for, but for now I'm watching to see what happens on a retest of the lows, and if we can hold 0.975, and yeah, then I'm stalking a long entry in Arbitrum. And if we go back here, my target's going to be 1.27 and potentially 1.39. We'll see how we go. If we go to 1.27, then it would be kind of wave 5 would be equal to wave 1, and pretty interesting support and resistance level there, and 50% retrace from this high. So if I've drawn it right, there we go, 1.2795 would be my target if we can turn up higher from here. So I'm kind of stalking a long entry in Arbitrum. So my favorite short is WorldCoin. My favorite long tonight is Arbitrum. And I've got 2 requests. Let's take a look at those. So the first one we're going to look at is sushi. I haven't looked at sushi for a while. Let's see how we're doing. Quite a lot of altcoins that have been doing really well are having a little bit of a pullback, and I think it's quite important to find the ones that haven't gone yet. Now here on sushi, this is another one. First off, you've got to say this looks like lovely bullish consolidation, doesn't it? Super strong rally and a sideways choppy overlapping correction holding this daily moving average. For me it looks amazing, but it kind of, we need to break out from this pennant for our next leg higher, and potentially, you can draw them as pennants, but quite often they become flags. So you'll have a big 1, 2, 3 wave correction, and then instead of drawing it like a triangle, you end up having to draw it with 2 parallels like this, and then that becomes your bottom rail, which would mean kind of, if we lose this daily 20 moving average here, which is at 0.97, we are likely to come down to around 0.76, 0.75 in a bigger 3-wave correction. And honestly, I don't know which way it's going to go, but for me it's no buy at the moment. And this sharp fall, in this struggling to rally kind of halfway back, doesn't say buy me yet, unfortunately. So yeah, I think potentially we've got another swing lower to come here. So this would be, something like this. Maybe just back to these lows. Sometimes we can do it like that, and that's what I would be looking for. So sushi looks good, but it's not quite ready to turn up higher again yet. Let's take a look at MATIC as well. Here we go. Now, big picture on the weekly here. If we say that MATIC's just been kind of doing this messy range, let's take everything off here. So here's our rounded retest double bottoms. So we had a spike lower, didn't we? Had a spike lower, and then we came back and we did this lovely kind of 2-month retest of this bottom. And here, to get out of this sideways range, we really kind of need to break these highs and hold above them. And unfortunately, we couldn't on the weekly close above it either. So we are kind of a little bit stuck in a sideways range. Now, normally in a range like this, you would see profit taking when this happens. But we've also kind of run out of steam with our trend. All our weekly moving averages are flat, going sideways. Ideally, if we're going to keep going higher here, what I'd like to see on a lower time frame is a clear kind of 3 waves back, attached to this weekly 200, and turn up higher again. So when I look at this on the daily, now, some people will tell you this is a head and shoulders pattern. It might be. In my humble opinion, when they fail, it's usually because they're an ABC equal measured move. So instead of getting to the, because normally the target from a head and shoulders pattern is from the head to the neckline, projected. So you measure from here to here, and then that gives you your target. Gosh, which would be all the way down here at 0.58. However, if this is an equal measured move, then we're not like to go that far. We're going to go this distance projected from here, which takes us down exactly to this daily 200 moving average. So I kind of feel like we're setting up a pullback to this daily 200 moving average, which previously in MATIC has been pretty good support. Like, you know, we pulled back to it for a super bounce here. It was support, resistance when we got underneath it. And so there, I think that this is the first place I would be looking to try a bounce in MATIC. And that would probably be like 50% back and somewhere around 0.68. Okay, I hope that's useful. Let me know if there's any more that you would like me to take a look at. There's a few out there that I think have room for more upside. One of the ones that I'm watching also is R-Weave. Here's R-Weave. Now here's this lovely channel that we're in, and for the first time we've gotten above, in the last 2 weeks, we've gotten above these weekly moving averages in R-Weave, and we haven't got back to the top of the channel. I've drawn it two ways, either here, you know, like this, because each time we went all the way up here, this is as high as we could close. So I've got two support levels here. And if I put them on, we'll take this most recent swing lower in terms of our fib levels. You can see we've 38.2, 50%, and then the 786 really. So I would say 15 on the upside for the second target. And let me draw that 50% level. But this is one where I'm at the moment looking to buy this again. So that 50% level here would be 10.9, basically 11. So 11 and 15, 10.9 and 15. And I haven't drawn this quite right. There we go. So I'm looking for a pullback here in R-Weave. And when I look at a chart like this, first off, I look at these really bullish green candles. And very often, if we're going to keep trending higher without a bigger pullback, 50% of the open close of last week would be first place. And if we do that bigger pullback, I'll use the fib levels and say that this 7 should be where it is, and that's where the weekly 50 moving average is. So stalking a pullback, I will give up and not be interested if we close back underneath 7. I'm kind of looking for it to hold somewhere around 8, 8.1. But for now, you know, the correction's underway, and I'm going to wait until it tells me it's turning up again. So yeah, I think that one's got some more upside as well. Okay, good luck. Let me know if there's anything